The air inside the great auction hall smelled of sweat, fear, and alien spices. Thousands of creatures from across the galaxy packed the massive building on Vex Prime. The planet was known for one thing: buying and selling people like objects. Tae-ho stood near the back wall watching everything with quiet eyes. He wore old clothes that had seen better days. His black hair was messy and dirt covered his hands. To anyone looking, he seemed like just another poor human who had wandered into the wrong place. The auction stage sat in the center of the hall. Bright lights shone down on it from above. Around the stage, aliens of every shape and size filled the seats. Some had scales, others had fur. Many had more arms or eyes than humans. They all talked loudly in different languages, making deals and placing bets. On the stage stood Vorthak, the head auctioneer. He was huge, even by alien standards. His green skin looked like old leather, and 4 yellow eyes moved in different directions as he watched the crowd. When he spoke, his voice boomed through speakers placed around the hall. "Welcome. Honored. Buyers!" Vorthak called out. "Today we have the finest selection of workers from across the Outer Rim. Strong bodies, quick minds, and all properly broken in for your convenience." The crowd cheered and stamped their feet. Some aliens waved colored cards to show they had money to spend. Others just came to watch the show. Tae-ho said nothing. He kept his hands in his empty pockets and waited. The first group of prisoners was led onto the stage. They were tall, blue-skinned people from the water worlds. Vorthak explained how they could work underwater without breathing gear. The bidding was fast and loud. Within minutes, a mining company bought all 12 of them. More groups followed. Rock people who could lift heavy things. Small, quick aliens who could fix machines in tight spaces. Flying creatures who could work on tall buildings. Each group sold for thousands of credits. Then the humans were brought out. There were only 6 of them, including one young woman. They looked tired and scared, but they held their heads up. The woman had long black hair and wore the torn remains of a research uniform. Her name tag read Dr. Ji-yeon Park. The crowd's mood changed immediately. Where they had been excited before, now they seemed bored. Some aliens even laughed. "Oh, look," called out one alien with too many teeth. "The monkey. People are for sale again." "Why do they even bother?" said another. "Humans break too easily, and they're not smart enough for real work?" Vorthak seemed annoyed that he had to sell humans at all. Yes, he said with a wave of his massive hand. "We have some humans here. Not much to look at, I know. But they can do simple jobs. Cleaning, carrying things, basic repairs." He pointed at Ji-yeon with a long, clawed finger. "This one even has some education. Found her at a research station before it was destroyed. She might know a few useful things." The crowd was not impressed. A few. Aliens made tiny bids, but most just ignored the stage completely. Tae-ho watched Ji-yeon carefully. She stood straight despite the chains on her hands and feet. When aliens in the crowd made jokes about humans, she stared right back at them without fear. There was something strong in her eyes that the aliens could not see. "Come now," Vorthak said, sounding frustrated. "These humans are cheap. Good for basic work. The bidding starts at just 50 credits each. A few hands went up, but not many. The bids moved slowly upward. 60 credits, 75, 100. That was when Tae-ho stepped forward. 500 credits for the woman," he called out in a clear voice. The entire hall went quiet. Thousands of alien heads turned to look at the dirty human near the back wall. Vorthak's 4 eyes all focused on Tae-ho at the same time. "Did that human just make a bid?" someone whispered. 500? Vorthak repeated, his voice full of surprise. "You want to bid 500 credits for the female human?" "Yes," Tae-ho said simply. Vorthak's mouth opened wide, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Well then, show us your credits, little human. Let's see this fortune you claim to have." 2 large alien guards moved toward Tae-ho. The crowd watched as they searched his pockets and his worn bag. They found nothing. No credits, no coins, no payment cards. Nothing at all. The guards held up their empty hands to show the crowd. Laughter exploded through the hall like thunder. Aliens slapped their knees, wiped tears from multiple eyes, and pointed at the poor human who thought he could bid with no money. Vorthak laughed loudest of all. "Empty pockets," he roared. "This primitive ape thinks he can bid with empty pockets. Did you hear that, everyone? The human wants to buy another human, but he has nothing to pay with." The laughter went on for several minutes. Some aliens recorded videos on their devices to share with friends. Others placed bets on what other stupid things the human might do. Through it all, Taeho stood calmly. He did not look embarrassed or angry. He just waited for the noise to die down. Ji-Yan was staring at him now. There was something in his face that made her think. Most humans in her situation would have run away by now. But this man just stood there like he expected this to happen. "Guards," Vorthak called out, still chuckling. "Remove this fool, before he wastes more of our time." The guard started toward Taeho, but he raised one hand. "Wait," he said. His voice was quiet, but somehow it carried through the whole hall. "I may not have credits in my pockets, but I have something much more valuable to offer." Vorthak stopped, laughing. "Oh, really? And what might that be, little human?" Taeho looked around the hall, meeting the eyes of aliens in every section. When he spoke again, his voice was different, stronger, more confident. "Information," he said. "Information that could make someone very rich. Richer than anyone in this room has ever dreamed of being." The crowd murmured with interest. In a place like Vex Prime, information was often worth more than money. Vorthak's eyes narrowed. What kind of information could a broke human possibly have that would interest anyone here? Taeho smiled for the first time since entering the hall. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knew something that no one else did. "The location of something that has been lost for 300 years, he said. "Something that every government, every corporation, and every treasure hunter in the galaxy would kill to find." The hall was completely silent now. Even the other prisoners on stage were listening. "I'm talking about the Soul's Dream," Taeho continued. "The lost colony ship that disappeared with Earth's greatest treasures aboard." Several aliens gasped. Others leaned forward in their seats. The Soul's Dream was a legend, a story told in bars and trading posts across the galaxy. No one had ever found it. Vorthak's 4 eyes were all fixed on Taeho now. "Impossible," he said. "That ship is a myth, a story." "Is it?" Taeho asked. "Are you willing to bet on that?" The auction hall buzzed with excited whispers. Aliens who had been ready to leave were now sitting forward in their seats. The mention of the Soul's Dream had changed everything. Vorthak studied Taeho with new interest. "You claim to know where this legendary ship is located?" "I do," Taeho replied calmly. "And why should anyone believe a human with empty pockets?" Taeho reached into his shirt and pulled out a small metal object. It was old and scratched, but it caught the light in a way that made several aliens gasp. The object was clearly made from materials not found on most worlds. "Because I have this," Taeho said, holding up the object, a piece of the Soul's Dream's hull, taken from the crash site 3 years ago. The crowd erupted in excited chatter. Several alien experts in the front row pulled out scanning devices and pointed them at the metal piece. Their instruments beeped and flashed, confirming what Taeho claimed. "Impossible," breathed one alien scientist. "The molecular structure matches the old Earth ship designs. This is real." While the hall filled with noise, Taeho's mind drifted back to who he really was. The aliens saw a poor human in dirty clothes. They had no idea they were looking at Captain Taeho Kim, former leader of Earth's Defense Corps. 5 years ago, Taeho had been one of the most respected military minds in human space. He commanded a fleet of ships and defended Earth's colonies from alien raiders. His strategies had saved millions of human lives during the Hegemony Wars. But the wars had scattered humanity across the galaxy. Earth's government fell apart. The colonies were abandoned or captured. Taeho's fleet was destroyed in the final battle at Kepler Station. He had escaped in a damaged ship with only a few crew members. Since then, he had been traveling through the Outer Rim territories. He told people he was just a wanderer looking for work. But his real mission was much more important. He was searching for captured humans and gathering information about the alien powers that had destroyed his world. The piece of metal he carried was real, but not from where he claimed. It came from his own destroyed flagship, which had been built using the same materials as the old colony ships. The aliens' scanners could not tell the difference. On the auction stage, Ji-yeon watched Tae-ho with growing understanding. She had studied Earth's military history as part of her research work. The way this man stood, the way he spoke, the confidence in his voice. She had seen these things in old video records of Earth's greatest commanders, the bidding for the human. Prisoners continued while everyone waited to hear more about Tae-ho's claim. A wealthy alien merchant named Kelthus eventually won Ji-yeon with a bid of 250 credits. He was a short, fat creature with purple skin and too many arms. His business was mining operations on dead worlds. Kelthus was known throughout the sector for being smart with money and careful with risks. He only bought slaves who could be useful in his mines and research stations. A human with scientific training was exactly what he needed for his newest project. After the auction ended, Tae-ho approached Kelthus near the exit. The merchant was busy arranging transport for his new purchases, including Ji-yeon. "I want to speak with you about a business deal," Tae-ho said. Kelthus looked down at the human with amusement. "You? What could you possibly offer me? You could not even afford to bid on your own kind." "I can offer you the location of the soul's dream," Tae-ho replied. "And everything aboard her." This got Kelthus's attention. He led Tae-ho to a private room behind the auction hall. Ji-yeon was brought along, still in chains but able to listen to their conversation. "Explain," Kelthus said, settling his large body into a specially made chair. Tae-ho placed the metal fragment on the table between them. 3 years ago, I was part of a salvage crew working in the neutral zone. We found debris from an old Earth ship. When we investigated, we discovered it was from the soul's dream. He pulled out a datapad and showed Kelthus star charts and coordinates. The ship itself is hidden inside an asteroid field in the Vega system. The crew tried to hide there when they were being chased by pirates. They never made it out. Kelthus studied the charts carefully. His people had some of the best navigation computers in the galaxy. The coordinates looked real, and the asteroid field was in a part of space where ships often disappeared. "Even if this is true," Kelthus said slowly, "that area is extremely dangerous. Ships that go there are never seen again. And you still have not explained why I should trust a human who cannot afford a single credit." Tae-ho leaned forward. "Because I am the only one who knows the safe path through the asteroid field. The only one who understands how the ship's crew thought when they were trying to hide. And what do you want in return for this information?" "The woman," Tae-ho said, nodding toward Ji-yeon. "Give her to me, and I will lead you to the greatest treasure in the galaxy." Kelthus laughed, a wet sound that came from deep in his throat. "You want me to trade a useful slave for coordinates that might be fake? You must think I am very stupid." "Then let me prove it to you," Tae-ho said. "Take me and the woman with you to the coordinates. If the ship is not there, you can keep us both as slaves for the rest of our lives. But if it is there, she goes free and you get everything aboard the soul's dream." The room went quiet. Ji-yeon stared at Tae-ho in shock. He was offering to bet his own freedom, his own life, on finding a ship that might not even exist. Kelthus was thinking hard. The soul's dream was legendary because of what it supposedly carried. When Earth's colonies were being abandoned, the ship had been loaded with the most valuable things humanity possessed: art, technology, scientific data, and treasures from a dozen worlds. If even half the stories were true, the ship's cargo would be worth millions of credits. Enough to buy a small planet. Enough to make Kelthus one of the richest beings in the galaxy. But the risk was also huge. The asteroid field in the Vega system was known as a ship graveyard. His own vessel might be destroyed trying to reach the coordinates Tae-ho had provided. "You would risk your life and freedom on this bet?" Kelthus asked. "Yes," Tae-ho replied without hesitation. "Why? What is this woman to you?" Tae-ho looked at Ji-yeon for a long moment. "She is human," he said simply. "That is enough." Kelthus did not understand this answer. In his culture, individuals only mattered if they were family or business partners. The idea of risking everything for a stranger was completely alien to him. But he could see that Tejo meant what he said. There was something in the human's eyes that convinced him this was not a trick. "Very well," Keltis said finally. "We will test your claim. But if you are lying to me, human, I will make sure you regret it for the rest of your very short life." Tejo nodded. "Understood." As they shook hands on the deal, Ji-Yan caught Tejo's eye. She mouthed the words, "Thank you," silently. He gave her a small nod in return. Neither of them knew that their journey to find the soul's dream would change, not just their own lives, but the way the entire galaxy viewed humanity. The poor human with empty pockets was about to prove that some things were worth more than all the credits in the universe. Keltis owned a ship called the Prophet Seeker. It was not beautiful, but it was strong and fast. The metal hull had patches from many repairs, and the engines made strange noises when they started up. But the ship had traveled to more dangerous places than most vessels in the galaxy. Tejo and Ji-Yan were given a small room near the cargo hold. It had 2 narrow beds and a tiny window that showed the stars. Ji-Yan's chains had been removed, but armed guards watched the door at all times. For the first day of their journey, they did not speak much. Both were trying to understand what had happened at the auction. Ji-Yan knew that Tejo had saved her from a life of slavery, but she did not understand why. On the second day, while the ship traveled through empty space toward the Vega system, Ji-Yan finally asked the question that had been bothering her. "Who are you really?" she said. "You are not just some poor human wandering around the galaxy." Tejo was sitting on his bed looking out the small window. "What makes you think that?" "The way you stood up to Vorthok. The way you talked to Keltis. Most humans would have been too scared to even enter that auction hall. But you acted like you expected to win." Tejo was quiet for a long time, then he turned to look at her. "You worked at a research station. What kind of research?" "History," Ji-Yan replied. "I was studying the old Earth colonies, trying to understand what happened to them during the wars. Then you might know the name Captain Tejo Kim." Ji-Yan's eyes went wide. "The Tejo Kim? From the Defense Corps? But you are supposed to be dead. The records say you died at Kepler Station." "The records say a lot of things that are not true," Tejo said. "My ship was destroyed, but I survived. Most of my crew did not." He told her about the final battle, when Earth's last fleet tried to stop the alien invasion. They had been outnumbered, 10-1, but they fought anyway. Tejo's strategies had allowed some ships to escape, saving thousands of lives, but the cost had been terrible. After that, Earth's government gave up, Tejo continued. They signed surrender treaties and let the aliens take whatever they wanted, including our people. "So you have been rescuing captured humans?" "When I can. But that is not enough anymore. The galaxy sees us as weak, as creatures that can be bought and sold like animals. I want to change that." Ji-Yan began to understand. "And you think finding the soul's dream will somehow change how aliens see humanity?" "The soul's dream is not just about treasure," Tejo explained. "If the stories are true, that ship carries something much more valuable than gold or jewels. It carries proof of what humans can really do." Before Ji-Yan could ask what he meant, alarms began ringing throughout the ship. Red lights flashed in their room, and they could hear Keltis shouting orders to his crew. The door to their room opened, and one of the guards motioned for them to come out. "Boss wants to see you," the alien said. Now. They were taken to the ship's bridge, where Keltis was staring at a large screen filled with swirling lights and moving objects. The asteroid field in the Vega system stretched out before them like a wall of spinning rocks. "We have reached your coordinates," Keltis said to Tejo. "But my sensors show nothing except asteroids and debris. Lots of debris from ships that tried to enter this field and failed." The screen showed dozens of metal fragments floating among the rocks. Some pieces were large enough to have come from major vessels. Others were small chunks that might once have been cargo containers or escape pods. "The ship is there," Tejo said calmly. "But it is hidden. The crew chose their hiding place very carefully." "Where?" Keltis demanded. "I do not see anything that looks like a 300-year-old colony ship." Tejo studied the screen for several minutes. He was looking for patterns in the way the asteroids moved. searching for signs that something large was hidden among them. "There," he said finally, pointing to a section of the field where several large asteroids seemed to be moving in formation. "Those rocks are not natural. They are surrounding something." Kelthus ordered his pilot to move closer. As the Prophet Seeker carefully entered the asteroid field, everyone on the bridge held their breath. Ships that made mistakes here were crushed by floating rocks or lost forever in the maze of debris. But Taeho seemed to know exactly where to go. He gave the pilot directions that kept them away from the most dangerous areas. Several times, asteroids passed so close to their ship that they could see the rough surface through the windows. "How do you know this path?" Kelthus asked suspiciously. "I studied the old star charts," Taeho replied. "The same charts that Captain Park would have used when he was trying to hide his ship." "Captain Park?" "The commander of the Soul's Dream. He was one of Earth's best pilots. If anyone could have hidden a ship in this field and kept it safe for 3 centuries, it would have been him." As they moved deeper into the asteroid field, their sensors began picking up something unusual. There was a large metal object hidden behind a cluster of rocks exactly where Taeho had predicted. "By the 7 moons," whispered Kelthus's pilot. "It is really there." The Soul's Dream appeared on their screens like a ghost from the past. The ship was huge, easily twice the size of the Prophet Seeker. Its hull was dark and covered with space dust, but it appeared to be undamaged. Somehow it had survived 300 years hidden in the asteroid field. "Incredible," Ji-Yun breathed. "It looks like it just arrived yesterday." But as they got closer, something strange happened. Lights began appearing along the hull of the ancient ship. Not emergency lights or damage indicators, but a steady blue glow that seemed to be coming from inside the vessel. "That is impossible," said Kelthus. "No ship could have power after 300 years. Taeho was staring at the screen with an expression that Ji-Yun could not read. "Unless it was designed to wait," he said quietly. "Wait for what?" Before Taeho could answer, their communication system crackled to life. A voice came through the speakers, speaking in Old Earth Standard language. "Unknown vessel, this is the Soul's Dream. Please identify yourself and state your business." Everyone on the bridge stared at each other in shock. The voice sounded human, but that was impossible. No human could have survived on that ship for 3 centuries. Kelthus looked at Taeho with new suspicion. "You knew this would happen, didn't you? You knew the ship was still active." "I hoped it would be," Taeho admitted. The Soul's Dream was not just a colony ship, it was also an ark. A way to preserve human knowledge and culture if our civilization was ever destroyed. The voice from the Soul's Dream spoke again. "Scanning unknown vessel. Human life signs detected. Requesting confirmation of genetic authorization." "Genetic authorization?" Kelthus repeated. Taeho took a deep breath. "Permission to respond to the Soul's Dream?" Kelthus nodded, too surprised to speak. Taeho stepped toward the communication panel. "Soul's Dream, this is Captain Taeho Kim of the Earth Defense Corps. Requesting permission to board." There was a long pause. Then the voice responded, and this time there was emotion in it. Something like joy. "Authorization confirmed. Captain Kim, you are cleared for docking. It has been a very long time since we have had visitors from home." As the Prophet Seeker moved toward the docking bay of the ancient ship, Ji-Yun realized that their adventure was just beginning. Whatever was waiting aboard the Soul's Dream, it was going to change everything. And from the look on Taeho's face, that had been his plan all along. The docking bay of the Soul's Dream was enormous. It could have held a dozen ships the size of the Prophet Seeker. But what amazed everyone was how clean and well-maintained everything looked. The walls gleamed like they had been polished yesterday. The air that filled their suits when they entered was fresh and breathable. "This is impossible," Kelthus muttered through his helmet radio. "No ship maintains itself for 300 years. Taeho, Ji-Yun, and 4 of Kelthus's armed guards followed the merchant through the airlock. Their footsteps echoed in the huge space as they walked toward what appeared to be a control room. Suddenly, panels along the walls lit up with soft blue light. A holographic image appeared in front of them, the figure of a middle-aged human, woman in an Earth Defense Corps uniform. Welcome aboard the Soul's Dream, the hologram said with a smile. I am Aria, the ship's artificial intelligence system. It is wonderful to see humans again after so many years. Kelthus's guards raised their weapons, but Tejo motioned for them to lower them. Hello, Aria, Tejo said calmly. Thank you for allowing us to board. Captain Kim, your genetic markers indicate you are a descendant of Commander Park's crew. Is this correct? Tejo paused before answering. He had not expected this question. I am from Earth. My family records were lost during the wars. Aria's expression became sad. Yes, I have been monitoring communications from Earth space. I know about the wars and the surrender. It has been difficult to watch. Ji-Yan stepped forward. You have been watching? For 300 years? That was my purpose, Aria explained. To wait and watch. To preserve human knowledge until it was needed again. Commander Park programmed me to stay hidden until humans were ready to reclaim their place in the galaxy. Kelthus was growing impatient. Yes, very touching. Now where is the treasure? Where are the valuable items this ship is supposed to carry? Aria turned to look at the alien merchant. Ah, you must be the one who purchased Dr. Park's freedom. Dr. Park? Kelthus looked confused. Ji-Yan Park, Aria said, smiling at Ji-Yan. Descendant of Captain Jinwoo Park, the commander of this vessel. Your genetic markers are quite clear, my dear. Ji-Yan stared at the hologram in shock. That is impossible. My family name is common. There must be thousands of Parks. Not with your specific genetic pattern, Aria replied gently. You are definitely related to Captain Park, which means you have the right to access this ship's archives. Tejo was studying Ji-Yan with new interest. He had thought she was just a random human who needed rescuing. But if she was related to the Soul's Dream's commander, that changed everything. The archives, Kelthus interrupted. Are those what everyone calls the treasure? In a way, Aria said, but perhaps not the kind of treasure you were expecting. Captain Kim, Dr. Park, would you like to see what we have been protecting all these years? They followed Aria's holographic form through corridors lined with empty rooms. Some had been living quarters for the original crew. Others contained machinery that hummed quietly, still working after 3 centuries. How is this ship? Still functioning? Ji-Yan asked. Self-repairing systems, Aria explained, and a power source that will last for thousands of years. The Soul's Dream was built to survive anything. They reached a massive room filled with glowing computer cores. The walls were covered with screens showing star charts, scientific data, and historical records. In the center of the room stood a control console that looked like something from Earth's most advanced laboratories. This is the archive core, Aria announced. It contains the complete knowledge base of human civilization, as it existed 300 years ago. Science, medicine, engineering, art, literature, philosophy, everything that makes humanity unique. Kelthus was studying the displays with growing excitement. This information, it would be worth millions, billions even. Some of these scientific formulas are centuries ahead of what the galaxy has now. Exactly, Aria said. Humans were never as primitive as other species believed. We simply developed differently. While aliens focused on military power and territorial expansion, humans concentrated on knowledge, creativity, and cooperation. She gestured to one of the screens which showed medical data. For example, we solved the vegan blood plague 200 years ago, the same disease that still kills millions of aliens every year. Another screen displayed engineering designs, and these are plans for terraforming dead worlds in 1/10 the time it currently takes galactic corporations. Kelthus was practically drooling as he looked at the information. I could sell this data and become the richest being in the galaxy. You could, Aria agreed. But there is a problem. What problem? The archives are protected by quantum encryption. They can only be accessed by individuals with human DNA and neural patterns. Any attempt by non-humans to copy or steal the data will result in the complete destruction of the archives. Kelthus's excitement turned to frustration. Then what good? Is it to me? It is not meant for you, Tejo said quietly. It is meant for humanity. Aria nodded. Captain Park's plan was simple. He knew that humanity might face dark times. Wars, conquest, slavery. So he created this ship as a refuge for human knowledge. A place where our greatest achievements could survive until we were ready to use them again. But how does this help our situation? Ji-Yan asked. We are still prisoners, and even if this information could help humanity, most humans are scattered across the galaxy as slaves. That is where the plan becomes interesting, Arya said with a mysterious smile. The soul's dream was not just designed to preserve knowledge, it was designed to share it. She touched a control on the console. Suddenly, all the screens in the room showed the same thing, a map of the galaxy with thousands of blinking lights. What are those lights? Tejo asked. Communication beacons, Arya explained. Placed secretly throughout the galaxy over the past 300 years by automated probes launched from this ship. They have been waiting for activation. Activation for what? To broadcast human knowledge to every inhabited system in the galaxy simultaneously. Not just the scientific data, but also our history, our values, our philosophy. Everything that proves humans are not the primitive species that aliens believe us to be. Kelthus was beginning to understand. You want to give away information worth billions of credits? Not give away, Tejo corrected. Share, in exchange for something much more valuable than credits. Which is respect, Ji-Yan said, finally understanding Tejo's real plan. You want to show the galaxy that humans deserve to be treated as equals, not as slaves. Arya nodded approvingly. Very good, Dr. Park, but there is still one more element to the plan. The archives can only be activated by two people working together, one descendant of the original crew, and one person who has proven their willingness to sacrifice everything for human freedom. She looked meaningfully at Tejo and Ji-Yan. I believe we have found both. But before anyone could respond, alarms began ringing throughout the ship. Arya's expression changed to one of concern. What is happening? Kelthus demanded. We have visitors, Arya announced. Multiple ships approaching the asteroid field. It appears that news of our location has reached other interested parties. On the main screen, they could see at least a dozen alien vessels moving toward the Soul's Dream. Some were military ships with heavy weapons. Others belonged to corporations that wanted the treasure for themselves. How did they find us? Ji-Yan asked. Kelthus looked embarrassed. I may have mentioned our destination to a few business partners before we left. You told them about the Soul's Dream? Tejo said angrily. I needed investors. This expedition was expensive. Arya studied the approaching ships with concern. Captain Kim, Dr. Park, if you want to activate the archives and complete Captain Park's mission, you need to do it now. Once those ships arrive, they will try to take control of this vessel. Tejo looked at Ji-Yan. Are you ready to change the galaxy? She looked back at him with determination. Let's show them what humans can really do. The approaching alien ships filled the screens around the archive core. Tejo counted at least 15 vessels, including several military cruisers that could destroy the Soul's Dream with a single attack. Arya, how long before they reach us? He asked. Approximately 20 minutes, the AI replied. But some of them are already sending armed shuttles into the asteroid field. They will arrive much sooner. Kelthus was pacing back and forth, his multiple arms waving in panic. This is a disaster. Those are hegemony warships out there, and Vorthak's people, even the banking consortium, has sent ships. How do they all know about this place? Ji-Yan demanded. Word travels fast in the Outer Rim, Kelthus admitted, especially when it involves legendary treasure. I may have told a few too many people about our expedition. On the main screen, they could see small fighter craft weaving between the asteroids racing toward the Soul's Dream. Some belonged to pirates looking for quick profit. Others carried corporate soldiers who wanted to claim the ship for their companies. They will try to board us and take control of the archives, Arya warned. Once they do, they will force Dr. Park to access the data and sell it to the highest bidder. Can't you defend the ship? Tejo asked. The Soul's Dream has defensive systems, but they have not been used for 300 years. I cannot guarantee they will work properly, and even if they do, we are badly outnumbered. Kelthus suddenly grabbed Tejo's arm. You have to access the archives now. Download everything onto portable storage devices. We can escape in my ship and sell the information ourselves. No, Tejo said firmly. That is not the plan. What plan? You are going to get us all killed. Arya stepped between them. There is another option, but it involves considerable risk. What kind of risk? Jian asked. The AI's expression became serious. The archive activation system was designed with a safety feature. If the ship is ever in danger of being captured, the archives can be broadcast immediately to all the communication beacons throughout the galaxy. But doing so requires enormous power. How much power? All of it. Every system on the ship would have to be diverted to the transmission array. Life support, artificial gravity, defensive systems, everything would shut down. Tejo understood immediately. We would die. Most likely, yes. The process takes several hours to complete, and without life support. But the information would be transmitted? Jian asked. Yes. Every piece of human knowledge stored in these archives would be sent to thousands of worlds simultaneously. It could not be stopped or controlled by any government or corporation. Kelthus was horrified. You are talking about suicide, all for some old human data. Not just data, Tejo corrected. Hope, proof that humanity deserves better than slavery. Through the ship's communication system, they could hear voices from the approaching vessels. Alien commanders were arguing about who had the right to claim the soul's dream. Some wanted to board immediately. Others insisted on calling for reinforcements first. They are treating us like a prize to be won, Jian said angrily, like objects they can buy and sell. Just like they treat all humans, Tejo agreed. Arya displayed a countdown timer on the main screen. The first boarding parties will reach us in 8 minutes. If you want to activate the broadcast, you need to decide now. Tejo looked at Jian. It is your choice. You are Captain Park's descendant. This is your family's legacy. Jian stared at the archives around them. Hundreds of years of human achievement, waiting to be shared with the galaxy. Medical cures that could save millions of lives. Scientific discoveries that could improve conditions on 1,000 worlds. Art and literature that could show other species the beauty of human creativity. What happens if we don't do this? She asked. The aliens will capture the ship, Arya explained. They will force you to access the archives, then sell the information piece by piece to the highest bidders. Some of it might help people, but most will be used to make profits for corporations that see humans as inferior. And if we do broadcast everything, the knowledge becomes free, available to everyone. Humans throughout the galaxy will finally have proof of their worth. It won't end slavery immediately, but it will plant seeds of change that will grow over time. Kelthus was backing toward the exit. You are all insane. I am returning to my ship. I'm afraid I cannot allow that, Arya said. The door to the archive core sealed shut with a soft hiss. Too much is at stake to risk interference. You cannot hold me prisoner. I can and I will. The choice belongs to Captain Kim and Dr. Park. Tejo moved to one of the control consoles. Show me what I need to do. Tejo, wait, Jian said. You saved me from slavery. I owe you my life, but I will not let you throw yours away for my family's legacy. This is bigger than both of us, he replied. Bigger than our individual lives. Right now, humans across the galaxy are being bought and sold like animals. Children are growing up believing they are inferior to every other species. If we can change that, if we can give them hope and pride in their heritage, then our deaths will mean something. Jian was quiet for a long moment. Then she moved to stand beside him at the console. Then we do it together. Arya smiled sadly. Captain Park would be very proud of you both. The countdown timer showed 4 minutes remaining before the first boarding shuttles would arrive. Tejo and Jian placed their hands on the DNA scanners built into the control console. Blue light flowed through the readers as they confirmed the genetic authorization. Activation sequence initiated, Arya announced. Broadcasting to communication beacons throughout the galaxy. Estimated transmission time, 3 hours and 47 minutes. Throughout the ship, Lights began dimming as power was diverted to the transmission array. The temperature started dropping as life support systems shut down. In the distance, they could hear the hum of massive machinery as the Soul's Dream prepared to share humanity's greatest gift with the universe. On the main screen, they watched as alien boarding shuttles attached themselves to the ship's hull. Soldiers with cutting tools began trying to break through the reinforced airlocks. "They will reach us soon," Arya warned. "I am sealing the archive core, but they will eventually break through." Kelthus was huddled in a corner, muttering prayers in his native language. Taiho and Ji-Yon sat together, watching the transmission progress bar slowly advance. "Do you think it will work?" Ji-Yon asked. "Will this really change anything?" "I don't know," Taiho admitted. "But sometimes you have to take a leap of faith. Sometimes you have to believe that doing the right thing will matter, even if you don't live to see the results." The first data packets were already reaching their destinations. On worlds throughout the galaxy, communication beacons that had waited 3 centuries finally activated. They began broadcasting human history, science, and culture to anyone willing to listen. And in the cold depths of space, 2 humans prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice for the freedom of their species. The temperature in the archive core was dropping rapidly. Taiho and Ji-Yon could see their breath-forming clouds in the cold air. The ship's lights had dimmed to almost nothing, with only the transmission equipment still glowing brightly. On the main screen, the progress bar showed that 15% of the archives had been broadcast. Across the galaxy, communication beacons were beginning to share human knowledge with anyone willing to receive it. "First transmission successful," Arya reported, though her holographic form was flickering as power levels dropped. "Medical data has reached the Centauri system. Reports indicate immediate interest from hospitals treating the Vegan blood plague." Through the sealed doors, they could hear the sound of alien soldiers cutting through the ship's hull. Sparks flew as their plasma torches slowly melted through layers of reinforced metal. "How much longer before they reach us?" Ji-Yon asked, wrapping her arms around herself for warmth. "Perhaps 20 minutes, Arya replied. "But by then, 60% of the archives will have been transmitted. Even if they stop us, most of the information will already be spreading across the galaxy." Kelthus had stopped complaining and was staring at the screens in amazement. "Look at this," he whispered. "These engineering designs, they could revolutionize space travel. And these medical formulas, they would end diseases that have killed billions." "Now you understand," Taiho said. "This was never about money. It was about giving the galaxy something more valuable than treasure." The broadcast continued steadily. Scientific data reached research stations on the rim worlds. Engineering plans arrived at shipyards struggling with outdated technology. Agricultural information found its way to farming colonies where people were starving. But the most important transmissions were different. They were recordings of human art, music, and literature. Stories that showed the depth of human emotion and creativity. Philosophy that demonstrated how humans thought about justice, freedom, and the value of individual life. "Transmission at 40%, Arya announced. "Reports coming in from multiple systems. Alien scientists are confirming the accuracy of the medical data. Several governments are requesting additional information about terraforming techniques." The cutting sounds from outside grew louder. The alien soldiers were almost through the first set of barriers. "There's something else happening," Arya said, her voice filled with surprise. "I'm receiving communications from human settlements throughout the galaxy. Word of the broadcast is spreading faster than the data itself." On one of the smaller screens, they could see intercepted messages from various worlds. Humans who had been slaves for years were learning about their species' true history. Children who had grown up believing they were inferior were discovering that their ancestors had created wonders. "Look at this," Ji-Yon said, pointing to a message from a mining colony. "A human worker just solved a technical problem that alien engineers had been struggling with for months." He used principles from the transmitted data. More reports flooded in. On a medical research station, a human janitor had read the broadcast data and pointed out an error in an alien doctor's treatment plan. The correction had saved a patient's life. It's working, Tejo said quietly. They're starting to see. Transmission at 70%, Arya reported. But I'm also detecting something unexpected. Several of the ships outside have stopped their boarding attempts. On the main screen, they could see that some of the alien vessels were moving away from the Soul's Dream. Others had stopped sending boarding parties and seemed to be in heated communication with each other. What's happening out there? Jiyan asked. Arya accessed the communication channels between the alien ships. They're arguing. Some of the corporate representatives are demanding that the transmission be stopped immediately, but others are saying the information is too valuable to destroy. Through the ship's sensors, they could hear parts of the alien conversations. This medical data could end the plague that's been killing my people for generations. But if humans have this knowledge, they'll demand better treatment. Maybe they deserve better treatment. Are you insane? They're just slaves. Slaves who apparently know how to cure diseases we couldn't even understand. The cutting sound stopped. Then they heard alien voices arguing in the corridors outside the archive core. The boarding parties are fighting among themselves, Arya observed. Some want to capture the ship, but others want to protect the transmission. Transmission at 85%, the AI continued. Critical threshold reached. Even if they stop us now, enough data has been broadcast to change everything. Suddenly, the sealed doors to the archive core opened. Alien soldiers rushed in, followed by several figures in expensive clothing who were clearly corporate leaders. But instead of moving to stop the transmission, they stopped and stared at the screen showing the broadcast progress. Incredible, breathed one alien scientist. These humans have had the cure for stellar radiation poisoning for 300 years. My entire species could have been saved decades ago. A military commander pointed his weapon at the control console. Shut it down. This information will upset the balance of power in the galaxy. But a corporate representative stepped in front of him. No. My company has been trying to solve these engineering problems for 50 years. This data is exactly what we need. Don't you understand? The commander shouted. If humans are seen as equals, the slave trade collapses. Entire economic systems will fail. Maybe they should fail, said another alien quietly. The room erupted in argument. Aliens who had come to steal the treasure found themselves debating whether humans deserved their freedom. The very information they had wanted to control was changing their minds about humanity. Transmission at 95%, Arya announced. Tejo and Jiyan watched in amazement as the argument continued. Some aliens were trying to shut down the broadcast while others were protecting it. The knowledge they were sharing was creating divisions among their captors. Look, Jiyan whispered, pointing to another screen. Messages from all over the galaxy. Human settlements were reporting that their alien overseers were treating them differently. Some were being asked for advice on technical problems. Others were being moved from slave quarters to proper housing. A few had even been offered paying jobs. It's not freedom yet, Tejo said, but it's a beginning. Transmission complete, Arya announced as the progress bar reached 100%. All archives have been successfully broadcast to communication beacons throughout the galaxy. The knowledge of humanity is now freely available to anyone who wants it. The arguing aliens fell silent. They all stared at the screens, realizing that it was too late to stop what had already happened. A corporate leader named Vex turned to face Tejo and Jiyan. What have you done? He asked, though his voice held more wonder than anger. We've given the galaxy a gift, Tejo replied. The same gift that humans have always tried to give. Knowledge, hope, and the belief that all intelligent life has value. But the economic implications. Another alien began. Will sort themselves out, Jiyan interrupted. Species that have been enemies for centuries might now work together to solve common problems. Diseases that killed millions could be eliminated. Dead worlds could become gardens. Through the ship's communication system, they began receiving reports from across the galaxy. Human slaves were being freed as alien governments realized their value. Research stations were requesting human consultants. Medical centers were implementing treatments that had been thought impossible. Most importantly, humans everywhere were learning about their true heritage. Children who had grown up ashamed of their species were discovering that humanity had gifts no other race possessed. On Vex Prime, Vorthak the auctioneer was staring at his empty slave pens. Word of the broadcast had spread quickly, and no one wanted to buy humans anymore. Instead, they wanted to hire them. The alien who had mocked Teho's empty pockets was now trying to figure out how to apologize to every human he had ever insulted. Back on the Soul's Dream, Aria's image began to fade as the last of the ship's power was used up. "My mission is complete," she said with a smile. Captain Park would be very proud. The aliens in the archive core looked at each other uncertainly. They had come expecting to find treasure and instead found something that challenged everything they believed about humans. "What happens now?" one of them asked. Teho stood up, even though he was weak from the cold and lack of oxygen. "Now we see if the galaxy is ready to treat all intelligent life with dignity and respect. And if they're not, then we keep trying. That's what humans do. We never give up hope that tomorrow can be better than today." As if in response to his words, the ship's emergency power systems activated. Warmth began returning to the archive core, and the lights flickered back to life. "Emergency life support restored," announced a mechanical voice. "Hull breach is sealed. Ship is stable." Kelthus looked around in confusion. "But I thought all the power was used for the transmission." "Most of it was," explained one of the alien engineers. "But someone has been supplying additional power from outside." On the main screen, they could see that several of the alien ships had connected power cables to the Soul's Dream.